First, will high-speed rail do anything to bridge the north-south divide? Statistically, you're going to live a shorter, poorer life up north than you will down south. The government reckons that by spending billions on high-speed rail, that will change everything, bring prosperity and jobs to the north. Now, HS2 is going to come in different stages. It will eventually link London via Birmingham to Manchester sometime before I die, hopefully. And HS3 will follow. That's an east-west connection linking Manchester to Hull. And HS2 and HS3 will effectively slash journey times by around half at a cost of anything up to, depending on who you believe, £105 billion. The question, I'm not going to talk about HS2, the pros and cons of the railway per se. What I want to know is, will it do anything to bridge this north-south divide that sees the government currently spend 6 times as much money on transport in London than it does on transport in the north, and 24 times more in infrastructure? Now, Harold Macmillan, our Prime Minister back in the 60s, late 50s and 60s, he was aware of a north-south divide. In fact, we've had one for 100 years. He vowed to tackle it. He introduced various measures to control the south. No long-lasting effect. And we end up in a situation today where a quarter of graduates leave places like Manchester for London, more than 300,000 in the last decade. More people are out of work in the north than down south, I think 22% in Manchester. But there are pluses. I mean, their average home in Manchester costs half what they charge in London. If that's not enough to persuade people to stay, will better rail links do any better? George Osborne, the former Chancellor, he pitched the idea of a northern powerhouse. I'm dying to hear your views on that. That was 2 years ago. The northern powerhouse it was going to be supported with investment in road and rail, better schools and theatres. But as I said, there's been a divide for something like 100 years. Now, joining us in the studio, some people with strong views. We have the developer Martin Ainscough, a Housing Association boss Ian Munro, and Joe Rukin from campaign group HS2. So good morning to all of you. Martin, a bit naive, isn't it, to think that just by spending a lot of money on a railway, we can bridge the north-south divide?
Well, it's certainly got to help. I think if you look at what's happening in countries like Japan, where they've got a high-speed rail network, and it's not just about the speed. This will add capacity as well. The reality is that the Northwest is the hub of the industry in the UK. Good connectivity with London is absolutely essential. We need to do a lot of work on the roads as well. But unless we get the infrastructure right in this country, you know, anybody that's even travelled here to Manchester this morning will have spent an hour longer than they should have done getting here. And anybody that's in business has to send people. I used to be in the crane business, and we had cranes stuck in traffic jams costing millions of pounds every year.
Okay, I know there have been problems, ironically, on the railways this very morning. Ian, will it do anything to bridge the divide?
It's going to help. I think what you pointed out early on, the imbalance in infrastructure expenditure in the UK between north and south is appalling. Yeah. 24 times in London, the southeast, as opposed to the north, is appalling. What the north needs to do is invest in skills. And keeping those graduates actually in place once they've finished in university. There's 100,000 graduates leave university in Manchester.
Why would you leave a city where your housing costs are going to be a fraction of those down in London, a vibrant city, fantastic entertainment? Why would you leave for London? I live there.
I think it's that sense that there's more of it. It's a bigger place. There's more opportunity. There's more things happening in London. And one of the things we need to try and do is try and get that buzz into the north and into the northwest.
Okay. Now, I have a feeling I can probably guess what you're going to say, Joe, to some of it. It's a huge white elephant, too much money.
Well, absolutely, Matthew. The idea that HS2 is going to be a magic wand to cure the north-south divide has just cropped up because all the other arguments have been knocked down. Like originally, when Chris Grayling was in opposition, he said it was his idea and HS2 would be an alternative to a third runway at Heathrow. Obviously, you can't say that anymore. And of course, then HS2 was going to connect to Heathrow. It was going to connect to the Channel Tunnel. Both of those things have been cut off it, but the cost has doubled. So they've got to come up with a new reason for having it. So this idea that it's going to rebalance the economy has been invented when every single piece of international evidence shows exactly the opposite will happen. It will just suck more economic activity down to London. You know, if you want to rebalance the economy, the very last thing you want to do is put in a fast train to go to London. You want to invest in the areas that need the jobs, create the jobs there, not not something that has just been lobbied for by the vested interests in the construction industry.
Okay, Phil, do you buy the notion that better rail links will lead to greater prosperity, better opportunity here in the north?
Well, I think if I'm a great believer in never building a temple until you've got a religion, you know. And I think if the high-speed rail was being driven by this fantastic demand from the north to actually connect, you know, or business was saying, you know, we need to do this, do this.
Well, business is saying.
Yeah, but it's not really, you know. I mean, we've got to be honest about it. This is a government project to try and rebalance a political problem, which is that, you know, London has become a city-state in itself attached to Europe, you know. And when we talk about north-south divide, we're not talking about north and south, we're talking about the rest of the country. Cornwall's got just as much problem as the rest of us, you know. So it's about rebalancing that. And also remember that there's only now 48% indigenous people living in London, you know, and everybody's come to, and there's no argument about that. I studied the railways in the 19th century, and they were driven by a demand by business to get their goods closest to market. I'm also old enough to remember that when the M62 was built, right, it linked Liverpool to Hull, it was because we'd be able to get a fast route between Liverpool Port and Hull to Europe, you know. And then the M62 was supposed to be linking us the same. All they've done is acted as drains. So it's quicker to get back to the capital, and I think this is the underlying problem with HS2.
Would you accept that? I mean, a high-speed rail could just lead to a high-speed drain of graduates. If they're leaving quickly now, won't they leave more quickly, Martin?
I don't agree with that. I think if we're going to create the northern powerhouse that we all aspire to, I think from the north, then HS2 is a critical part of it, along with lots of other major road infrastructure.
But you can't do that.
Okay. So you want to see other other investment as well.
The thing is that this amount of money that you're spending on this, isn't it worth spending it on the infrastructure in the north as it is, so people can actually get to work? That's the problem with Manchester at the moment.
You say work, Sally. I think the BBC estimates something like 80% of jobs are going to go to artificial intelligent robots by 2050. So that, I mean, are we going to need to go to work? Maybe we should be building robotics factories.
Maybe so we can go and do our cleaning jobs in London and then get back to our hovels in the north in the future. Yeah. I mean, the big one for me is I'm in favour of any spending on infrastructure anyway. I think we're way behind the rest of Europe in terms of our infrastructure. You know, Germany, France, Belgium,
But
Holland.
is this the right
I just think we've got to do it. You know, let's bite that bullet now. What appeals to me about it is those railway lines macheting through the Tory heartlands. You know, so fantastic. And then, but the big one is getting from the west to east.
That should be HS2, not going to London. All they should do is improve the London lines at the moment. Just put more trains on, make them more affordable. They're absolutely fine. Do your meeting an hour before, book an hour before.
Isn't it the case, gentlemen, that HS, the high-speed rail links, ultimately are going to be used to ferry passengers, while the conventional existing railway lines are going to be used for increased good transport? Now, all the indicators we've had so far is that to travel on HS2 is going to cost a lot more money than to travel on an existing railway line. So what we're going to end up with is business gets a cheap ride on the railways at the taxpayers' expense, and rail travellers will pay through the nose to get somewhere marginally quicker than they used to go before, Ian.
They'll be nationalised by then.
I think Terry had it on the nail there. We've not spent enough on infrastructure. There's a huge amount of investment needed in infrastructure. My point of view is housing. We need at least 1 million houses before 2020 for the people who need that accommodation. People can't afford to buy, people can't afford to rent. If we invested in those things, there'd be a massive...
So why are we spending money on
Right, why not?
Well, good question. I think it's a good question in terms of the 50 billion odd pounds that's going to be spent.
Would you rather see we were building houses rather than railways?
I'd rather spend money on houses, because that investment actually generates things now. It gets people accommodated now. It gets tradespeople working now. It gets people spending the money that generates. For every house we build, we generate £100,000 investment.
You can build a house, but you've got to ask who's going to buy them, you know.
And who can, how do you pay for the houses?
Where's the jobs
where's
coming from? That's the thing, you know, because I still don't get the idea that because we can get to London in an hour somehow or that's going to create a massive amount of jobs in the north. I mean, why would you?
Well,
why,
my cynical view, which I've shared many times before, is I'm not so sure about Manchester, although the journey times make it possible. But from Birmingham, I can see Birmingham becoming a satellite city to London, that people will be commuting in. I mean, they already do, but they'll be commuting in a more sort of...
If you believe the thing, yeah, but if you believe what they're going to say, it's going to take 68 minutes to get from Manchester to London instead of 128. That is actually faster than some of the tube journeys in London.
Yes, it is.
So you're going to end up in Manchester on Thames.
We're asking if high-speed rail will do anything to narrow the north-south divide. Actually, what does our audience think? Hands up, who thinks high-speed rail will narrow the north-south divide? Hands up, who thinks it won't? We're spending billions to make you people happy, and this is how you treat us? Gosh. What we do know is that by spending, according to the Taxpayers Alliance, anything up to £100 billion will halve the journey times between Manchester and London and Manchester and Hull. It will reverse, or at least the fans say it will reverse a trend that sees our friends in the north live shorter, poorer lives than those down south. Will it reverse the brain drain that sees a quarter of all graduates in the north head to London? If cheaper housing, I said the average Manchester home costs half what they charge in London, if that's not enough to persuade people to stay, you do wonder if rail links will do any better. Before the break, developer Martin Ansco said that high-speed rail will help, but he's very passionate that it should be part of a broader package of investment in the north. Better roads, better investment. Housing Association Chief Ian Munro said, understandably, that he feels we'd be better off spending the money on housing, although we accept we would need improved infrastructure to go along with that. And Joe Rukin from Stop HS2 lives up to his name. He feels that it's a waste of money, that high-speed rail is not some kind of magic wand. Costs have doubled. The government needs to invest properly in the north. What are people saying at home, Storm?
We've got Emma on line 1.
Morning, Emma.
Hi, Matthew.
So, will it do anything to bridge the north-south divide, Emma?
I don't think it's really going to do anything to fix the divide. It's more of like a cultural thing. I think the only thing it will sort of provide is that people who have moved from the north to the south for jobs like myself will be able to go home easier, so it'll be like a lot quicker to get home. Currently, it takes me about 4 hours on a train and 4.5 hours to drive in traffic. So all it will sort of give me is the chance to go home a little bit more often.
Yeah, I mean, what age are you, Emma?
I'm 22 now.
Oh, so you've got a chance of actually riding on a railway that our taxes are providing, or that we will probably never see the day.
Old age pensioners cars.
I do wonder whether, Emma, we would have been better off starting with HS3, the east-west link. I mean, down south we've got something called Crossrail, which runs straight across London. It's been recognised by politicians as the sort of infrastructure investment London needed, and yet we're waiting. HS3 will be the very last piece of the puzzle.
I think, to be honest, the commuting times that you can do down south in any sort of job that requires to travel, the new rail, you could do that and live up north and not pay the stupid property prices that you have to pay down here, and just take the same commute that you sort of have to do when you do move down here.
OK, Emma, thank you very much. Let's try another, please.
We've got Steve on line 3.
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Do you believe high-speed rail will be like a magic wand to the north-south divide?
No, not at all. It's got its good points, it's got its bad points. The bad points are they're going through people's houses, they're going through people's businesses to build it. I know of one place, it's a place called Waterorton, which is on the borders of Warwickshire and Birmingham, and they've got to remove the school for the HS to go through.
OK. Do you see... I mean, how will it bring prosperity to the north? I'm still puzzled by that. If graduates leave the north as soon as they can to move down south, why won't they just move quicker?
Well, people move around the country anyway.
Yes.
If you look at the armed forces, they know where they are. They have to move around the country to do their stuff. But I don't think it will help. I just think... I will never see it in my lifetime. I'm 63, so I'll never see it in my lifetime. I wouldn't want to travel on it. It'll be too expensive. It'll only be for those that can afford it. So those that can't afford it are still going to have problems getting around.
OK. Is it worth the money?
No, it's not, no. The price of it seems to be going up and up and up. I just wonder where they're going to find the money for it. it's like everything they do. They start off in all this good, what's it, and then it goes completely belly up, and it ends up costing 10 times or 20 times more than it originally priced at.
Millennium Dome, yes, I know exactly what you mean. Trident. Steve, thank you. Let's have another.
We've got Dan on line 4.
Good morning, Dan.
Morning.
So, will it bridge the north-south divide when it's eventually completed?
Well, I think most of my points have already been made. Like the French TGV has shown that all the investment gets up towards the capital.
Right.
I think if the government were serious about a northern powerhouse, they would concentrate on interconnecting the northern cities.
Well,
I'm a particular fan of maglev, which theoretically could connect Liverpool to Manchester in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So we're doing it back to front?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
pretty
Yeah,
much.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I thought that too when I first saw it announced. But there we go.
It's politics, isn't it? You know,
It's London again.
there's not as many Tory votes in the north, so
I hadn't thought of that.
you know.
I hadn't thought of that. I thought it was just a random project to create jobs to get us through a financial crisis.
85%.
We need an infrastructure project. We need an infrastructure project. Let's build a railway parallel to a railway we already have and charge people loads to go on it.